teach mostly English as a second language immigrant students. And I always look for different ways to keep my students motivated, my instructions more engaging and interactive, and that can be sometimes very challenging. So I was very happy to see that through ITPD training, I can find different ways to make my teaching, my instructions more engaging and interactive. And I was very happy actually to look into the different apps and resources that we were told to investigate further through the ITPD training. How did I use my iPad? How do I use my iPad? And how do I try to encourage my students be motivated and find different ways to keep them, active in my in their learning approach? I use the iPad mostly to browse the internet, access the Blackboard site, check my emails. I try to create and edit presentations with Prezi, which I'm using right now to show you my presentation. I try to use it for Quizlet in building some activities, create polling questions, and to update my bookmarking site Symbolo, and for, of course, many other purposes. With the ITPD training, again, my goal was to learn about different resources, about different apps, and to find different ways on how to integrate the technology into my classroom. So Prezi is a cloud-based presentation tool. It's very visually appealing. I used to use PowerPoint presentations for every single lesson until I saw a couple presenters at conferences and conventions using Prezi, and I was like, wow, what is that? So I looked into it, and I really got motivated and excited to explore around with it. And this is the end product of it. I created maybe 3 or 4 Prezi presentations so far. It's a little bit time-consuming at the beginning until you get used to the system and figure out how to, let's say, add a link or a video and certain things like that. But once you learn about it, it gets really easier. So I really enjoyed creating my ITPD showcase presentation with it, and it took me less time when compared to all the other presentations that I was trying to do with Prezi. I used it in one of my advanced level writing classes when we looked into cause and effect essays. So this is a screenshot from my Prezi presentation and my Prezi site, which I will take you to. Effect essay, and I was also able to embed a video to have my students.
I'm Liz Lavin reporting for Cabrini College.
So you can embed videos, embed links, and do a lot of other fun stuff with it. One thing that I found out about Prezi is that it's apparently not compliant with ADA 508. So they recommend that whenever you use Prezi, also to add an additional PowerPoint presentation to your resources that you're using. In this case, for us, it would be the Blackboard site. The next thing that I really had fun to look into was Quizlet. I knew about Quizlet before, but I was never engaged and motivated enough, I believe, to look into it in more detail and start using it in my classes. And my husband actually was using it to learn Turkish. And he would, create his own flashcards with the vocabulary. And when we were driving somewhere, when I'm the driver, he's the passenger, he would be practicing his Turkish vocabulary words through the flashcards. I was like, maybe I should look into this more. And then as it came up during our ITPD sessions, I was like, I'm going to definitely look into this. So that's what I did. I started creating some resources with Quizlet for my students. And I embedded them actually into my Blackboard site, because what most of my students find challenging is not all of them are very comfortable with technology, and not all of them, especially in my classes, not all of them have their smartphones, and they don't like to go to different websites. So even though Quizlet provides us the benefit of creating a classroom in Quizlet, and we can have our students go into the classroom and do all the activities, I prefer not to do that, just because it becomes too cumbersome maybe for students. So I embed them into my Blackboard site, and this is again a screenshot from my Blackboard site to show you how it looks in Blackboard. And again, here during week number 2 in the semester, I had a Prezi presentation on the kinds of sentences in English, and I was able to link my Prezi presentation through Blackboard. So my students can just go in here and click on it, and they will have access to the Prezi presentation. They can download the presentation, save a copy of it, or email it to themselves. So it's very easy to use and very accessible, and I don't think they're required to create an account to link to the file. And then here is again an example to practice with Quizlet. I created this flashcard activity with Quizlet and embedded it into Blackboard, so my students don't have to worry about creating an account with Quizlet and going into the Quizlet site. They read the sentence, click on the bottom corner, flip the card, and find out what kind of a sentence it is. So I have, in this case, 10 questions for them. And then another activity that I have is, again, the scattering game. We had talked about coordinators and subordinators, and I, again, embedded this game through Quizlet. Then they click on Start Game. Again, they can match the coordinators or the subordinators with the appropriate sentences. What we have learned in class, and we also get 1 hour each week lab time. So if there is nothing else to do, they can always, in the lab, go to the Quizlet site through Blackboard and practice through these activities. So I really ended up liking Quizlet a lot, and I started creating my own. So once you are in your Quizlet site, you can actually decide what kind of a study material you would like to use the activity with. So you can choose the flashcards, or you can test the students. You can actually print a PDF if you really want to use these questions as a test in the class. That's another option as well. Responding my answers to the questions. So I thought this would be a good way to keep my students engaged and to have them interactively involved in my classroom. It's a free website, and you can have, the full version of it is not free, but you are limited with the free version to 25 participants, which is good enough in my classroom because I usually have only 22 students. Here is again a screenshot from Poll Everywhere. So I use this polling activity in one of my classes again. We were talking about cause and effect essays, and we were brainstorming about different topics. So I asked my questions to brainstorm about the different reasons why people are obese, and I told them to text message their responses or to go to this website to send their responses to me, and their answers anonymously started popping up on the screen. I know not all students in my classes particularly have a smartphone, so what I did, I put them together in groups, which was great for collaborative work, and I saw that they were very motivated and engaged, and they were talking about the reasons why people are obese. And again, it's anonymous, so once the answer would pop up on the screen, that gave us a chance to talk about it and further brainstorm about it. So instead of just making the students work in little groups and me going around and becoming a part of the group, I did it this way, which I found very engaging as well. And I got actually good feedback from my students. They really like to be a part of it. They get excited. They want to make sure they sent their responses in. So far, I did this in 3 different classes. So I used, again, one for types of sentences and another one for sentence review. So as you can see here, I had 5 questions, which I think is the limit in the free version of it. Again, I usually have the screen up, and then the question is up here. I tell my students to brainstorm in their groups, and then send their responses about the kind of sentence. In this case, it said, you should read every day if you want to improve your English more quickly. Some students, unfortunately, there did not recognize the if clause, so they just responded that it was a simple sentence. Some got it as a complex, and there was one student that responded as it to be the compound sentence. So then we brainstorm. Once I get all the responses, we brainstorm, and I ask the students, why they don't think it is a compound sentence, why that one student might be mistaken, and then we do it for all the other responses as well. And I sometimes end up writing the sentence on the board and illustrate actually the clauses in it. So again, I do use the traditional methods, definitely, but I use this as a way to actively engage my students and participate. The next thing that I looked into was Screencast-O-Matic, the screen recording website that Mary had mentioned. At first, I found it very challenging. It was very time-consuming. It took me, I don't exaggerate, maybe 2 hours to record this essay. I wanted to look perfect. I wanted to make sure that I was not using the mouse way too fast and not confusing the students. So I just was very overwhelmed, and I almost gave up using this tool. But then I wanted to give it one more try. So I ended up actually liking it in the end, and I know I have to spend probably a couple more hours to look into further, to investigate it a little bit more, but so far I'm happy. I used it only once for this sample, and I actually noticed that my students liked it a lot. And again, I was able to put this on my Blackboard site for my students' self-study purposes. Again, we go through the instructions in class, we tell them what a thesis statement is, what the topic sentence is, and how an essay is organized and everything. But then again, giving the students a chance to re-watch this and to re-listen to this at home, on their own time, at their own pace, gives them a second opportunity to study the material.
Parts of the essay, which I have labeled as introduction, body, and conclusion.
For the cause and effect essay, for which I provided the link to my students, and then the sample cause and effect essay dropping out is here. The students can just go and click on it, and then they have access to the video. And I have uploaded this video first to my Dropbox, and then from the Dropbox I was able to get a link, and that's how I used the link to embed the video into my Blackboard site. So to conclude, I really enjoyed integrating technology into my ESL classroom. The process was sometimes overwhelming and time-consuming, but I'm very happy with the results. I got positive feedback from my students, and I'm actually very happy about the fact that I can provide my students resources through which they can further study at home on their own, download these materials, and keep them for the entire semester or for the rest of their lives, as long as they can save them in a place that they won't lose it.